So welcome to another war game review from theplayersaid.com. My name's Alexander.
And I'm Grant.
And today we're taking a look at a card game.
Yeah. We don't play a lot of card games.
Well, there's not a lot of card war games, right?
No.
So this is one of them. It is brand new. It's
Well,
on Kickstarter.
Yep, on Kickstarter.
That's why you're watching this mostly.
Yep.
So this is called Melito, and it's designed by Martin Wallace,
Which is a name board gamers should recognize.
Yes, and it's been put out by PSC, which is Plastic Soldier Company Games. You know them from all the little miniatures that they make in 1/100 scale and 1/72 scale, as well as other board games they've designed, right?
The Great War, Battle of Britain that we've played.
They put out, in conjunction with Worthington, they put out Lincoln, which is
Oh, it's a great game.
a great game, also a Martin Wallace design.
Yeah, great
Martin
game.
Wallace, you know him from Few Acres of Snow, Lincoln. It was a
Clash of Wills, Shiloh,
1865.
Civil War, 1862. Yeah.
Okay, so
Civil War game.
right, ooh, Thunder and Lightning.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's a very prolific designer, right? We've all played his games.
Yep.
This is brand
And a
new
very
brand.
good designer. He knows what he's doing,
Yes,
frankly.
and so it is purely a card game.
No other components other than cards. Well, there may be in the Kickstarter campaign, I'm not sure.
Yes.
But it was cards. From the terrain cards to the units themselves, all cards.
And it is a very fast playing,
Yes.
very tight, tactical Ancients war game.
Yes.
So it's a game where you have preset decks of factions. We played with 6 decks. We played with Imperial Romans, Republic Romans. We played with Ancient Britons,
Persians,
Carthaginians,
Macedonians, Alexandrian Macedonians.
And those are just 6 words. So there's a ton of room for making this game
Yeah.
bigger, expansions, because
Egyptians, Phoenicians. I mean, you could do Greeks. You could do
all different ages.
a lot.
I mean, you could do all the sub-factions of. I mean, there's just tons.
Yeah.
So you have a preset deck of about 30 cards, and you're basically just playing the decks against each other. And what you're doing is you're vying for control of a battlefield. The battlefield is quite simply 5 terrain cards in the middle. Now, this is
drawn at
Ancients.
random.
Right, but it's an Ancients war game. If you've played any Ancients war gaming,
They fight in the open.
Most of them fall on like an open plain or a
Yep.
field or just a big patch of dust, right?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. We've played a couple of ancient war games, and the maps are very basic, very little terrain.
It's almost sad to look at sometimes.
Yeah, because we love playing really involved, deep, cool, thematic, colored
Beautiful games.
maps. But ancients typically are. They fought between, a mountain on the west
River
and a
on
big
the
river or
east.
the ocean on the east, and they fought in between. And this does a very good job of replicating that. It's a random draw where the unique terrains move to the outsides. They don't ever stay in the middle.
Yep.
Which is cool, but it does create some randomness. But it's very simple. They could probably add additional terrain types.
Yep.
I think the only terrains they had plain, hill, rough, and woods. So they could add
Yes.
some others.
Right.
That would be those buffers on the end, or
And there's so much room for house ruling, making the
Oh, yeah.
mixing decks, doing all kinds
Yeah.
of stuff that you could and want to do with this kind of a game. But really, what you're doing is your deck of cards are a bunch of different units and some leaders. And the leaders aren't units that you place out; they're used as enhancements for combat
Or-
for kind of placing units.
Yeah.
Giving orders. Basically.
which is a really, I liked that a lot. It was
Mm-hmm.
different. A lot of times your leaders are units on the field. These were cards in your hand that you played to enhance a battle.
Yeah, they're giving orders, right?
Yeah, I
It's an
liked that.
abstraction, which
I
is
liked
neat.
it.
But each of these cards, you're kind of lining them up in these 5 columns. There's 5 terrains that you're fighting over. If
For control.
at the beginning of your turn you control 3 of them, you win the game. So it's a very tight game. Usually it's tight, and it falls on a knife edge and one person wins.
Yeah.
That's typically how these go.
And you mentioned the changing, but it really can change on a dime. 1 or 2 battles go a certain way, and it opens up flanking attacks, and it opens up more control. And all of a sudden, you might have really powerful units in the middle of the board. And we played it 4 times today, and we were kind of like, oh, it's over. You know,
Yes.
at some point we were like, this battle is over. There's no dice rolling.
Nope.
There's no events. So it really doesn't change the outcome if you get outmaneuvered. And I really liked that.
Yes.
I really liked that my movements, particularly how I used my units, really decided how those battles were. But yeah, it can turn on a dime.
Yes.
You lose one key battle and you're like, oh crap. And then you might not have the cards in your hand to do what you need to do because you don't get a lot of cards.
Yes.
3 a turn. After you've shuffled your deck, you get 4. That's not many cards.
No.
So it can go really bad really quick.
But basically, you're lining up troops, and each faction, and again, we played with 6 factions, have totally different units, different compositions within their armies. So each faction feels different.
Absolutely. Right? Well, they have different advantages. They have different weaknesses. They have different costs to get them out. Leaders are different. Some of the leaders, the British, the ancient British, man, I can see, you mentioned their glass cannons. I can see that they're very powerful, but they're hard to play right.
Yes.
That's not one you're going to give to your new friend and expect him to beat you.
They say, play with like the Republican Romans and the Carthaginians first.
Some elephants and some heavy cavalry and big dudes in the center. But that's what I really liked. Each deck was very different. I felt, and we played all of them. Mm-hmm. Really enjoyed that asymmetry and that differences and those factional uniqueness. Very cool.
But yeah, it's you line your guys up, you put them out. Some units are free to put out, some have a cost, so you discard another card from your hand to put a unit out. You got a hand of 9 cards to start with, so things can get expensive pretty quick if you do it, inefficiently. Trying to make a battle line, they're trying to make a battle line, and then to fight, you just compare my attack strength, your defense strength, and if I'm attacking you, I can optionally play a leader from my hand, or I can just pull off the top of my deck.
Oh, it's a unit. It doesn't add anything. Yeah. This is actually a leader. It's a very good leader.
I think there's 8 leaders in a deck and about 30 cards.
So about 30% of the time you're going to potentially draw a leader. Not good odds.
Not really an optimal strategy, but there are times where you're forced to do that.
Well, but that brings up another point. Because you're trying to get through your deck, so you can get, maybe you played all your really powerful heavy infantry the first round, using that pull from the top of your deck to throw on a battle is a way to kind of, because you don't lose those cards, they go back to your discard, but it's like you cycle through your deck, and I kind of liked that.
And you want to do that because normally at the end of your turn you draw 3 cards.
Right.
For basically the first time around your deck. If you get into the second time around your deck, you draw 4 cards. So you're starting to get more cards as the battle goes on, which was interesting, and it makes a big difference if you can get there.
Yeah, thematically, is that correct? I'm not sure. As a battle goes on, typically your forces get weaker and weaker.
Or you're more desperate and you're throwing...
Yeah, maybe you're trying different tactics or called in some reinforcements that... So yeah.
But yeah, so
interesting.
There's some sub-strategies about, do I blow through my deck to get that extra bonus, or do I be a bit more careful with the cards in my hand?
Yeah.
But basically, I put down that leader and it's face down, and then the defender, if they retreat, they retreat. Nothing happens, basically. Mm-hmm. Or they can decide to fight. They'll put down a leader face down, or they'll also draw from their deck as well. You flip those 2. If it's a leader, it gives you a bonus or a negative.
Yeah, some of the leaders give you negative.
Each army has one terrible leader that gives you a negative. So, 1 in 7 of your leaders. 8, it's terrible. But you basically compare combat values, and whoever wins. If it's a tie, it's a tie. And there's certain outcomes that happen. Like if you win a combat, the enemy dies, you take control of that terrain.
Yep.
1 of 5. If it's a tie, you kind of all the forces are removed.
They're discarded. They're not killed. They go back to your discard pile.
Because when units are killed, they're removed from the game. If you retreat or if they're removed some other way, they just get discarded and you might see them again.
Yeah.
So things can get bad if some of your best units get killed. You get out of it and you're like, oh no, I'm fighting without my best guys. But
that was something I really liked, that there's really there's a discernible strategy about how you play each faction's guys. So some of the light cavalry and light infantry are not very powerful, but they're used in essence to delay the other army from taking control of those terrain.
Yeah, you're putting it out for free.
You just want to
You're
draw
taking
them
it
back.
Yeah, they attack you withdraw. You put a new one out.
So I really liked that. I think a lot of times I ask myself what I want to come out of this battle. I'm probably not going to win this. What do I really want to happen? I want to make it so Alexander doesn't control it, so I'm going to take that guy and put him in my discard. Now, that can also backbite on you because you have to bring more guys out, and it gets very expensive. On the flanks, the two end pieces, you have to discard on some of the guys an extra card to play them there. So it can get really dicey at the end, nearing the end of a battle, to be able to even play more than one guy a turn. So you really have to be careful about that, and I like that. I really like that element.
What I'll do is I'll show you how it all works, and then we'll wrap up with some final thoughts about this one, okay? So here's a look at the kind of play space, I guess is what we're going to call it. As you can see, basically you've got two different factions, and they're vying for the terrain in the middle. The majority of the terrain, which is dealt randomly, is going to be plain. It's going to have nothing in it. It's just basically a place. Now, these terrain cards, there's 9 of them, and you deal 5 randomly. You can see here on the flanks, we've got woods, and we've got a hill. When you're dealing the terrain cards, you kind of deal them in a line. Anytime you have one of these non-plane terrains, basically, they just get shifted to the edge. So you're fighting in this open space in between kind of terrain features, basically. And that's just how ancient battles were typically fought, with large armies in open spaces. Now, the terrain is interesting. This gives the defender +1 in combat, if they control this. Control is determined by who this card is facing. These ones that are lined up like this are neutral. If this faces towards this player, the Roman player has control of this, and the Carthaginian player does not control it. So if this Carthaginian player attacks this Roman infantry up the hill, it's controlled by them. They're going to get a +1 defensive bonus. Very simple. The woods, on the other hand, basically everyone is -2 in attack and defense, unless they're light infantry, in which case they actually get a bonus. So we've got auxiliary infantry, not light infantry, and archers, not light infantry, and spears. All these guys and their little attack and defense values are reduced by 2. So if you want to fight optimally in these interesting conditions, you have a bit more to consider. Now, with your planes and everything in the middle, you're looking to get good, strong battle lines with good defense and attack values. So we've got some Roman heavy infantry in the middle, 5 attack, 4 defense. Very, very good, kind of strong units. We have some Carthaginian heavy infantry, again, 5 attack, 4 defense. But they're supported by these light infantry. And these light infantry have this little kind of chain link symbol. That means they're a unit that can be combined with other units. These numbers don't add, but this card basically gives a +1 attack and defense to this guy. Normally, if you look down here, normally you could only stack like-named units together. So this heavy infantry and this heavy infantry stacked together. So he's a 5-4 with a guy underneath him. He's a 6-5. When you get into mixed units, because of that combination symbol, you can choose when you attack or defend which one is going to be your main attacker and main defender. And that's interesting because, well, this guy gets a bonus in defense versus cavalry. This guy gets a negative attack versus cavalry. This guy gets a huge attack bonus against elephants. So you're looking at some really interesting choices about how and when you're using these guys, who you're putting them up against when you're putting them out and lining them up. So there's always stuff to consider. You have a hand of cards, and it's literally a mixture of, well, these are all the interesting. All right, let's take a look at these. So you got spearmen, medium infantry, some more spears, and you got these leader cards. This is what your hand is going to be filled off, those two things, units and leaders. The leaders, you look, don't have an attack, defense, and move value like these units do here. They quite simply are a modifier. So with combat, let's say we've got our heavy infantry and our light infantry going up against our heavy infantry and our heavy infantry. So again, let's say the Carthaginians are attacking here. So he's going to attack with his 5 attack value, and he's going to add 1, because a support unit will only ever add 1. So we've got 6 attack, and this guy's got a 4 defense, plus 1, 5 defense. Out of my hand as a Carthaginian, I am going to hedge my bets. I really want to win this combat, so I'm going to add my plus 3 leader. I declare my attack, I put this face down. Now, the Roman player, he's got a 5 defense, this guy's got a 6 attack, and he's put down a leader. This might be a bluff, I don't know, so I have to weigh up my options. Do I retreat? Do I not retreat? Well, if you need to retreat, this kind of speed value here must be greater than the enemy speed value. Equal to, not good enough. And it has to be greater than all attacking units. So he's got a 1-1, he's got a 1. It's equal, can't retreat. This guy's got a 3 speed. So even if I was a 2, I'd be greater than the heavy infantry, but not the light infantry, so I wouldn't be able to actually retreat anyway. So I have to stand and fight. And this is one of those instances where it's pure strategy based on who you're putting out with whom. So let's say the Roman player doesn't have any cards in their hand because they played them all out. They just draw randomly from the top of their deck and basically pray to the gods that they get a really good leader. They won't. Spoiler alert. So this card is a 3, so the total attack value for the Carthaginians, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's very, very strong. This guy pulled a unit. Unit's not a leader, obviously, so it doesn't actually provide a bonus. So this is basically a 0. We just discard this. So I only have my 5 base defense. This number's way higher, so the attacker wins. These 2 enemy units are destroyed. They are permanently removed from the game. There's a discard pile over here. We're going to have a kill pile over here. In doing so, this leader card that I played, I got the bonus, just gets discarded. What happens is that because the Carthaginians won that combat, that they decisively won it, they take control of this. Now, if the defender had been able to retreat, so if you take a little look here, elephants attack the auxiliary infantry. These guys are so slow, they have a 0 movement, the elephants do. We'll kind of put it this way so you can see that better. This guy's got a 2 movement. His 6 attack is going to crush his 4 defense. I'm not even going to bother worrying about that. So basically, the Carthaginian player says, I'm going to attack, and I play down a leader. This is really important. That leader does get placed down every time. So there's that element of, well, I'll just retreat to make my opponent waste their leader. And I might think, well, he's going to retreat, so I'm going to waste a spearman. I don't want to waste my good leader that I have in my hand, so I'm just going to bluff, basically. So I'm like, well, I'm retreating, not worth it. When I retreat, I go to my discard pile, not my destroyed pile. This spearman, if it was a leader, it would get discarded. If it's a nothing, it also gets discarded. So this gets discarded because this is just the little bonus card. Now, he didn't fight a combat, he didn't win the combat. So this stays neutral. I don't take control of it. So that's a really important aspect of this game, is when to retreat in order to maintain these as neutral, and when to stand and fight in the instance that you might lose a combat and things go very poorly for you. And that's really what this game is about. If you end up with a big hole in your forces, that's very bad. Because now, this guy and these guys are subject to flanking attacks. This elephant, if he was to attack him in the flank phase of the turn, which is very early on in the turn, he's a 6 attack anyway. You get a +2 bonus because he's being kind of outflanked, basically, with this empty space here. Elephant comes charging in and attacks on the sides. So this guy's an 8 attack. You get to crush a lot of people doing flank attacks. And they kind of snowball. These guys are going to flank attack him and crush him. These guys are going to flank attack him, crush him, if they can kill him and get him out. So you have to be really careful about how you build your battle lines, not being too hasty to attack or being hasty enough and really, putting in some critical damage, filling some creating some major holes in the lines that the enemy can't then refill from their hand, because your hand limit is really, really key. So that's kind of how this works. There's a ton of cards. You get 30 cards in each deck, and you got your little, this is for the Imperial Romans. That's what their kind of composition of their forces are. And it's really important to know, what you've got, how you're going to play them, because each of these factions works very, very differently, and it's pretty cool to see. So that's just the basics of this game. What we'll do, we'll wrap up with a few final thoughts here. So that was a look at, not the board per se, but the cards, how it all works.
Tableau, maybe? I don't...
Sure. The play area.
The play area.
I wonder if they'll have a play mat in the Kickstarter.
They might. Could be a good idea. Maybe.
There you go, just throwing that out there. But, all right, this is a 20-minute game.
Yes.
Right? It's really quick to play.
It can be over in 10 minutes.
That, yes.
We had at least one match that I thought was over in about 10 minutes.
But, we play a lot of long war games, really heavy war games, so it's nice to have something refreshing, almost as like a filler.
Yep.
Right? Just play it a couple times.
A war game filler.
But on top of that, there's actually quite some decent, fun, rich strategy in this. And then there's tons and tons of decks with this and different combinations that you can make and things like that. So if you wanted to play this just as a competitive game, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we see tournaments of this at WBC.
Oh, yeah. I think definitely. Yep.
Because it's just fun to play with, and it's quick and dirty, and then it's done with.
Yep.
You're not... I don't think it
doesn't drag
possible to drag on for 45 minutes.
I'm thinking in our plays, we did have one that went a little bit long, but it was because I thought we were really playing well.
Yeah, having some good draws.
Yeah.
The battles were fairly even.
But, nothing was over 20 minutes, and that's good. This is going to be a nice filler. I also think this is a very nice, fun, competitive game where you're not... I mean, we talk a lot about you play a 4-hour game and you lose on the last card of a game.
Right,
it really hurts. Yeah. This you're like, it's over. Let's get the other decks out and let's play another game.
Yes.
And maybe then you end up doing a rubber match because each one won. And so I like that. This could be something I could see playing with children.
Yes.
Teaching my daughters the basics of war games, although there's not movement or zones of control. It's really just...
But there's some the flanking stuff like that, right? Teaches them important things. The way the units are designated, where it's more expensive to put heavy infantry and pikemen on the flanks, is to try and dissuade you from doing it.
Right.
Because you put those guys in the
middle, center.
And you have your cavalry and your light infantry on the flanks because they can maneuver more easily.
Yep.
So there's actually some pretty cool tactical stuff to this.
Oh, yeah.
That is decently historical.
Yep.
For a card game like this.
Yep.
And that's impressive to me that they were able to boil down so much into some
15-minute
system. Yeah.
Yep. I also really like the art. The art was fantastic.
Yeah, neat.
You can see from the graphic there on the box to the different units and the different cultures. They all feel different. They look, the Romans look like Romans.
I don't know if this is final artwork, but if it was, I wouldn't care. It's great.
If this is final artwork, that I don't think they would go wrong in that. I would love to see, and I don't know how you would do it, two different things. I think there's a way you could maybe do a solo with this.
Maybe.
Assigning, different strategies and where they're going to deploy units and drawing units off the... I'd like to see if they could do that. And then secondly, I'd love to see if there's a way to make this like a battle royale. Where two guys are playing the Carthaginians versus two guys or gals playing the Romans and make it longer. I just think it would be cool to have 6 or 8 people playing the same game.
Frankly, it would be very easy to do.
Yeah, you could house rule that probably.
Easy to do that.
But maybe that's another thing. They can look into a way to do multiplayer games. I think that'd be kind of fun. It would just become a battle royale.
Right, you got to have a longer table.
Yeah, you could have 12 people playing all. That would be kind of cool. That'd be kind of cool.
I imagine someone is creative enough to make it.
I'm sure they.
But yeah,
gamers are pretty creative.
It was a really fun, neat game, and it plays very quickly.
Yep.
And it's a credit to itself that it does. It's not huge, but
right.
The stuff that it does, I'm surprised at how much
Does
they want
it well.
to pack into it, into two decks of 30 cards going up against each other.
Well, it was funny. We got it out. We started messing around with the rules, and I think the first thing you said after our first game was, "There's a lot more to that game than I thought there would be."
Yes.
And I think you're absolutely right. This game is, I think it's going to get deeper and deeper the more and more you play it.
Yes.
Because you'll learn the different nuances and tactics of each faction. I think we learned more about the game by that fourth play. I think we really had down some of those tactics, and I felt like our third and fourth game were really good.
Well, what's nice,
good games.
Unlike a lot of the competitive card games out there, there's no deck construction.
No.
There's no pay to win. I'm
No.
not investing an ungodly amount of money in expansions.
Oh, look, I
and
opened this
stuff like
packet and I got Alexander.
Right.
Yay, my Macedonians are undefeatable now. No, that's not the
I
case.
buy my little box. We play against each other with
Yeah.
the decks. It's really easy to learn, and you just play.
And it's fun. I mean, it's a fun, simple game. The rule book was written well. Thought it was organized well.
It's like 11 small pages.
Very easy to reference. I would like to see a good, very quick player aid with the sequence of play on it. That was something we had to kind of go back, and it was actually, I think, on 2 different pages. But other than that, pretty easy. I think anyone can pick this game up. I think anyone can enjoy this game.
Yeah, and the other thing is it is it's not very language dependent.
No.
It's a lot of symbology and numbers.
Well, you have to read like the negatives or the positives that they get against different types. You're right. The symbols are there, but elephants looks like elephants pretty much in any language, I think.
But it's not something that someone's going to be overwhelmed at with a ton of effects and things like that.
Right.
So, it's
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I thought it was pretty clear. I thought the rules were pretty clear. We only had one discussion point, and it was about the flanking rule.
And that's not,
and it was just the way that it was written made us both, you got it pretty quickly. I had to pause because I'm like, that's not really how flanking works, but it is how flanking works.
And that's because I've butchered my way through Upfront, and we've played.
And they're similar.
Point Blank.
Yep, I do. Love that game too.
Those games have a similar idea,
Yep.
concept of flanking. So I was like,
Yep.
I'm going to err on the side of caution with those.
Yeah.
And then that aspect of it reminded me of some of those older games where it's not just I've got some guys with some numbers. That flanking, the positioning, can win you or lose your battle really quickly.
How many times that I think at least 2 of our 4 games came down to, it was like we went down the line during the flanking attacks and we wiped the other.
Yeah.
And it was just because that advantage is so huge.
But it's really cool. But
you have to get into that. And it's not easy.
And how historical is that, though?
That's absolutely how this
happened. You crush them
happened.
on the flank, and you wheel the army, and you
smash them from the side.
Yep, that's so cool.
You hold the center, you form your line, and you beat them on the ends. That's the way it ended up working.
And it's just neat again that it's all boiled down into a really quick 20-minute game that gives you a lot of flavor and a lot of it's surprising amount of detail.
I enjoyed this a lot. We also asked ourselves, it's only a card game. We don't play card games very often.
Not really, no.
We really don't play, but I think this is one that I would like to see in my collection because I think I'd whip this out in between games or take it on vacation.
Yes.
Where we could play it and just play it 15 minutes and even play it with our wives and our children. I think this is that kind of game, and I like it.
Yes.
I like it.
Yeah, so this gets a big thumbs up from us. I think we had a blast. We played this for a good, almost a couple hours playing 4 or 5 games. I bet we played,
between learning the rules, reading through the cards, 2.5 hours. Which is great. We don't do that a lot with games.
No, and again, they did a good job of making all the factions different. Yeah. Different types of infantry, how they work, different values on them, how that affects how you play them. They've done a stellar job with that, and there's infinite room for more of this game as well.
You could have 2 or 3 expansions, and you won't even cover all the ancient civilizations. So
this a really neat game and a game with a ton of potential to it. So if you're on the Kickstarter page, go and press that button because this is going to be a good one and a fun one and a quick one that you can play with almost anyone. So
agreed.
Appreciate you guys tuning in. We've been theplayersaid.com. I'm Alexander.
And I'm Grant.